Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Let's do it for the Grand Nagus. Let's do it for Ferengis everywhere. Let's do it for equal shares of 50 bars of gold press latinum. It always comes down to profit with you people, doesn't it? We're Ferengi. And that's why I love you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. It is week 2 on the Quark's Treasure Ferengi shuttle build. And I did some work over the weekend, and I will show you in a second. But I want to take a minute to address 2 specific people in my audience. That would be the Olsons, Pat and Oscar. I swear to you, you folks, I'm going to publicly praise you. I am calling you my patron saints. You know, in the old days, in the Renaissance, not that I was around, but you know, you would have artists who would have patrons, and that's why they call the Patreon service now that they have is kind of named after that idea, where you would have artists who were free to do their art because patrons would be subsidizing their bills and bringing them food or, you know, whatever. And I have got to say, I have the best patron saints on the internet at this point. I have people who will send me unbidden. They will send me gadgets or lights or materials or tools. And I love each and every one of them. But I'm going to call out specifically the Olsons. They have sent me another kit to build, and it's something that I had a keen interest in doing, but I never even really said, hey, I want to do this. But they somehow knew that I wanted to do this kit. I'm going to keep it a bit of a secret for right now, but we'll be getting to that in the very near future. But I wanted to take up a couple of things, so thanks again. I wanted to take up a couple of things from reading the comments of this weekend. Yes, I believe that the green lights in the floor of the shuttle are a little bit strong, and I'm taking steps to work on that. And the second thing is trying to do something that would dress up the base. And I got to thinking, this is where my 3D printer might come in handy. And you know, they said this, I wasn't around back then when copiers first came into being. I'm not quite that old, but I may have been around, but I certainly wasn't in the workforce then. But they always said, you know, the old joke was, oh yeah, well, they'll just be using that to Xerox money. They'll be using that to copy dollar bills and counterfeiting and all that. And of course that was a lie. It never actually worked. There are safeguards in place, and by the time copiers got good enough, the safeguards got good enough so that you just can't Xerox copy money. So they were thinking, oh, okay, well, 3D printers are the same way. They're just going to be, you're going to be 3D printing counterfeiting stuff. Well, you can't make money with it, but you can make gold press latinum, my friends. I found a file this weekend, was sent a file, actually, recommended a file, to make up some gold press latinum bars. I got bars, I got strips, and I got slips. I got the 3 different sizes. And I'm going to be using those to scatter around the base for Quark's Treasure. So I'm going to put some latinum. That's going to dress it up a little bit. And I think that'll be a neat trick. Nice little bit of house dressing. But let's get down to the table, because I want to show you where I'm at on the green light issue. Okay, so where we're at on the green light issue is that a while ago, another friend of the show, Rob Schmidt, had sent me some circuit boards that were basically the exact thing folks were talking about. Their little I don't know the technical term for this. I'm sorry. I guess resistors would be more accurate, but it's got a little turning dial on it that you can put power into it, and then this is power going out, and by turning this you can dim down the lights that are attached to it. Now, before I crack into the actual kit, I wanted to make sure that this would actually work, because sometimes LED strip can be twitchy. It's not maybe as forgiving as individual LEDs are as far as being able to dim them up and down, dim them or brighten them. LED strips, if you don't give them enough juice, they just shut off. They just won't light. So I wanted to make sure that it was even feasible before I took it over and applied it to the kit. So here we have the same green lighting. This is actually more of it. The same green lighting as what I'm using in the kit. And by doing this little adjustment here, I can turn it up. You hopefully can see it getting brighter. Or I can turn it down and there's dimmer. So we know that that works. So we have a yay and a happy and a success there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to snip these wires here. I'm going to attach them to the wires in the, let me move my treasure out of the way. I'm going to take a wash over these and kind of dirty them up a bit, but I wanted to, that's something I got done over the weekend. But I'm going to bring over the ship. Now, because I was being a smarty pants, I can tell you that these two lines right here that are green and white are my green lights. So all I need to do is isolate those, put that circuit, put this circuit ahead of it between the power going in and those strips, and we should be able to turn everything else on and balance the amount of green light that we're using. Okay, it's time to turn down the lights. I've got the circuit board in line now with the green lights. I've got them powered up. Let me see if I turn this overhead off. Maybe we can get a better estimate. That's completely off. That is just a little bit on. That's as bright as they were. So I think we can cut it back to about there. See, that's as bright as it is. I don't want them to be completely gone, or else why would I have done it? That is very dim. I think about half strength is good. Again, that is it. They're very fine adjustments here. And we're going to cut it back just some. That's too much. Of course, that's off. It's just not as fine-tuney as you think it might be. Okay, that's good. I think that's good right about there. That gives it a green presence. It has some nice reflection, but it is not too overpowering. Now see, what you're seeing is a lot of reflection on the gold walls, which is how it should be, but the light itself is actually not that bright. And here we go. We've got the last of the lighting done for the cockpit, cabin, whatever you want to call it, this thing. I've got the two main monitors in. Now those will get covered with decals, so a lot of that brightness will get knocked down, but that's good. I think the next thing to do would be to put the chairs in, and then we could start worrying about the people. Okay, I thought after doing all of that intricate electronic work and soldering and all that, that I would back out, switch gears, do a little bit of heavy body work, and I've taken a big old file and I've just smoothed this the top of this joint. It looks like about 60 to 70 times better than it used to. I still have a little rough patch going on right here. I think I can take care of that, but this edge here is smooth as an Android's bottom right now. Another coat of primer on that will show me what is left to address. I think I'm going to end up replacing some of these raised bits. I need to check the reference again to see whether those in fact are raised or whether they're actually scribed. So we may be getting rid of all of those. Who knows? Also, I want to go in with a fairly aggressive. I want to be careful around these guys, but what I'd like to do is go in here and smooth over some of that JB weld that has been left in place. There's one big spot right here. Oops, it would help if you could see it. One big spot right here that I need to join up. If I put a piece of card across it, you'll be able to see that there's a gap right in here that I need to fill in. There's also a bit of a gap right in here, but you know, I can live with all of that. I can fix that with maybe a little bit of cardstock just right in there, fill that out. So let's take care of that and mix up maybe some more JB Weld and put it in there. Okay, we're going to close down for today. I've been sanding and filing and filing and sanding and patching and puttying and doing all that, priming, all that. I think I've got this joint down to where one last seaming with the Bondo is all it's going to take. And so we're going to let that set up all night tonight. And then we're going to come back and sand it in the morning, put one last coat of primer over it, and then I think we'll be ready for the body color. Hey-ho, friends and neighbors, it's Tuesday, and work is continuing on Quark's Treasure. I am taking a moment to fondle my joints, as the term goes. Look how smooth that is. That's smoother than an Android's bottom. I love it. That's just the result of me taking my time for once. How about that? What a novel approach. Take my time, go over it, do some sanding and some filler primer and some JB Weld, and then last night was just a thin line of Bondo in there, and I've sanded that and put the filler primer on it this morning. Got a couple touchy touches to do. But boy, howdy. Boy, even this a little irregularity right here, I'm going to live with that because what's behind it is smooth. So I'm loving it. A little bit of work in here, but when you consider originally how far off that joint was, and if you want to go back and check it out in last week's video, you will see that it was way off. I've got a little bit of a divot here that actually happened when I was using the file yesterday. So I'm going to fill that in. But and this is where I had to beef up that joint a little bit where it was offset so that it would sit flat on the bottom plate. Hey, the bottom plate actually has its first coat of the cinnamon color on it. Cinnamon was the color that I found last. It was after the terracotta, after the brick. I found cinnamon in one of the other Home Depot the Home Depot big box store. Brought that home, put it on top, said this is nice. So it's a satin cinnamon color, very similar to the terracotta that I started with. But what you don't know is when I was at the hobby shop, I found this. I think I've mentioned it. It's the Coral Mission Models. This is a perfect color to use as a top coat, not as the only coat, because again, like I said, and I'll repeat to my dying day, doing this whole thing with an airbrush is, I won't say it's a fool's errand, but it's beyond my patience level. But I can use the big spray can and then use the airbrush as a top coat, which gives me a little bit of depth in my finish, but also gets it to a more proper color. Now I see you staring at these. I see you. You've been staring at these all video. Yes, I put those in this morning, but they're not glued. What it is the 4 brass rods, or tubes actually, that come with the kit. And what you have to do is put a 90-degree bend in one, or in one end, and then slide it into the hole. Luckily, these holes here and on the back side, these ones here, are deep enough. They're printed deep enough that you have a little bit of leeway. So if your 90-degree bend isn't perfect lengthwise, you can adjust it a little bit. But what basically you have to do is put in the back end and kind of bend, kind of hold it up until it's in the right position. Takes a little bit of wrestling. These will all be painted black after the fact, but then you can pop it in there. Now what happens is that they sink down a little too far, so I've made a spacer that I can put underneath here. I can put underneath the back and slide it in, and that will raise all of these guys up to the right level so that when I put a drop of CA or epoxy on them, they will cure at the right height. Then I can pull this guy out. Basically, he just has to go in like that, and then get spun around so where it is. Come on, there you go. Spin you around, pull you out. Oh, this one's a little bit low. I can move it. Oh, come on. You're on camera, that's why you're messing around with me. Making me look bad in front of company. Stop it. Basically, you take it like the guitar strings and the bridge of a guitar, where now you can slide that up to the front, and that will hold everybody at the right height there while the epoxy sets. So those are all working. I need to take them out, of course. Now that I've got them all in, I've got to take them out because I need to paint underneath there. So I make them easy enough to move in such a way. Now, my only problem is making sure, I don't think they're that individually done that I can't interchange them, but I want to make sure that they go back in the same order. So this, outside of that one last bit of putty there, is ready for, almost ready for the top cinnamon coat. I've gone in and golded the inside of the cockpit ceiling, because you do end up seeing some of that when you're looking through the window. You end up seeing some of that. So that needs to be golded. I've decided that rather than gluing this cabin to the floor piece, it's actually going to be easier if I glue it to the ceiling piece. I can slide it in like that, and epoxy it in, and then put the floor on it from the bottom. Just attach the floor like that, rather than trying to fit gluing this to the floor and then trying to fit everything around it. But by putting the cabin in the headpiece, that's going to allow me to join up all the wiring for the engines at one time here, as opposed to if I had glued this to the plate, then I would be fumbling around with two big sections. Now I can do all of my work here and then simply add the bottom plate as if it were a lid. Okay, here is the bottom plate. Now, like I said, I've got the first coat of that on there. Now that this is all sitting like this, all I need to do is simply attach it like that, and we're good to go. If I had glued the cabin to the floor, I would be fumbling around with a whole bunch of other stuff. So now I can do this, basically. Just do that. Glue the post to the floor and add it like that. Okay, so I got the tabletop cleaned off because it's time to do something fun and sexy and all of that. And the bigger pieces are off marinating and doing what they do. But right now I want to put some decals down, and I need to put the decals that go here, which are these guys. And I'm going to pick one each. There are two different screen designs, and you could put, mix and match. You could put both of the same design up, or you can put one of each, or whatever. So I'm going to use one of each just to give it a little bit more oomph. And then we're going to be down to painting figures. And that's all going to be a lot of small, intricate, tedious detail work. Okay, so I've got the decals in. Got these bullseye things, which don't have lights behind them, and the lit screens, which obviously do have lights behind them. I've got the toned down green lights here. I've got my figures laid out as to where they're going to be. I've decided the pilot is going to be Quark after all. He just looks better, even though he's not, got his hands on the controls. Of course, we've got Rom over here with his son, Nog. And we've got the Grand Nagus, maybe Brunt, and one other advisor there. So it's just a question of picking out a good color scheme and starting to work on it. Now, I don't know if I'm going to try to do Quark's famous Partridge Family jacket, the one with all the squares of color in it, only because It's so much stinking detail. And I don't know if I can faithfully accomplish that. I noticed that they did have a tendency to wear, in the costuming, they had brightly colored tops, but more subdued or single color pants. So I think I'm going to start by painting the pants on these characters and going from there and trying to figure out what looks best with each of them. So once again, I go to Google search looking up various photo references, and this is it. Actor Tiny Ron played the character, but the henchman, the bodyguard, the manservant, that is the character that's missing in, well, it's one of the characters that's missing in this set that I think would round it out nicely. The other one is a true Rom. The Rom character that's there isn't, it's nice, but it would be nicer if he maybe had his Bajoran uniform sculpted on and maybe the head skirt. I believe Rom was the only other character behind Nog that still wore the head skirt, so that would have been nice. But that's here I'm getting the references, and I'm seeing that a lot of pictures that are showing the old Playmates figures. Well, I have those figures, and that's a good starting point because it gives me some good color blocking plus an idea of how to simplify some of these textures, because you can imagine painting something like that would be well, it would be the end of me, frankly. That's all there is to it. See, that's the look I'm preferring to go with Nog, with Rom, with the more simple uniform. And here are the three of them. See how he stands out? Stop this. There you go. Much more simpler. Stop it. I like these colors best for these three characters. No, we don't have a Moogie. Here's Nog in a civilian uniform, but I'm going to use he's already sculpted into Starfleet Cadet, so that's what we're going to use for him. Here are some good color references for Brunt, Jeffrey Combs. You have to put Brunt in there. Now, again, the complicated color scheme aside, I think if we keep the chevron colors stripe and the stripe down the center, these guys right here, just indicate those on there. I think that would be enough. And then we know he has a dark pants. Again, a lot of the Ferengi characters have a dark, solid color pant and then a more elaborate waistcoat. Okay, here's a nice change of pace for a Quark that would have you have just as long as you put those stripes on his sleeves and go with some basic colors here, you could get away from having to put all of the colored checks and squares on his jacket. This is the one that is probably the more representative, although I do like this one with this lavender burgundy color with some squiggly lines on it. That might be easier to duplicate than some of these more elaborate coats of many colors here. Alrighty, so I've gone in and I've put some base colors down that I'm really happy with on all of the characters. Let me get the rest of them over here. And I'm going to be touching, refining the shapes with the heavy or the tiny detail brush. But I'm happy with my colors. I think I've got a good mix and a good combination and a good differentiation. Now I think I want to make Brunt here a little more browns, a little bit more oranges. Maybe those black pants need to be a darker brown, sort of like this guy. But I like them. I'm going to be able to now go in and put some color washes over top of some things to try to bring out more colors. I've got Quark in his striped sleeves. I've got the Nagus with some gold on there. Of course, Nog was the easiest one because he's in his Fleet Cadet uniform. Like I said, I need to add the pink. I'm not wild about. I need to do more browns and oranges on that, and maybe gray up some of what Rom is wearing there. But I'm happy with all of that. Of course, I got the decals into the cabin. Once I get the characters the way I like them, I'm going to glue them to the floor. I got to make sure they are well and truly secured, because we're going to be turning this upside down and right side up and all which ways, and I need to make sure that they're not going to jump loose. Well, I've got the messy hands to prove it, but I've just been dirtying down the latinum, trying to put some aging on it to get rid of all of that shiny gold and make it look a little more ancient and used. So we're going to let this dry, and I'm going to hit it with a buffing coat of maybe some rub and buff gold to bring it back, to bring the highlights back up. But yeah, get that off of here, get it all cleaned up so that I can get back to second round of figure painting. Okay, feast your eyes. The single biggest change I've done to this entire kit was to get the first coat of the brick and also the cinnamon color. And I went with the cinnamon first, and then I lightly dusted over a coat of brick, which brought the red out. Now, it's still going to get the overall highlight pass of the coral, but that is looking mighty spiffy. And look at that seam. You can barely tell it's there. Yay. Very happy with how that turned out. Now I just need to set it someplace where I can leave it and not monkey with it. Let it dry, let it cure, do all that kind of stuff, such that I can start doing the final assembly on it. Well, I got to get it done this week. I mean, I'd like to get it done this week. There's no reason why I can't get it done this week. So what I'm going to do is like I said, put that aside, let that dry, and I'm going to start turning my attention to how to light up the back. But before I do that, I probably need to finish the kids here. And you can see the pile of latinum here that I've been antiquing. Looks much better, looks a little bit more realistic, and so I'm noodling ideas of how to use this, and maybe drill a hole down through it for something to go on the base. But starting to all come together all at the same time. Hello and good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, and I'm hoping to get just a ton of stuff done today. We're starting to put all of this stuff together. All the stuff we've been doing separately is all going to start coming together, I hope. What we've got here is the inside cabin. I've got a few of our characters glued down. I've got Quark and Rom and Nog next to his proud dad. And I've got the Nagus back here. And I've got these two guys, which are going to be Brunt. And I'm just calling him generic henchman because I don't have the specific henchman. But I've been playing with the ornamentation and adding some fanciness to their outfits. I have to tell you, after a while, I was looking at this guy between the jacket and the pose, and I was getting a real Freddie Mercury vibe, particularly from the back. It was looking a bit queeny. So I'm going to glue those guys down, and it's going to be important then, once they're glued down, to give this thing a good shake test, because this is going to be on for a large part of its life, it's going to be upside down so that I can do some other gluing, and I'm really going to need these guys to be in and not rattling around and glued down and secure. I got to neaten up and insulate a lot of what's going on under here. I think I'm just going to glue a piece of plastic over top of the whole thing to kind of insulate the whole thing away from, keep it out of danger. The ship out of danger? Yes, keep the ship out of danger and keep the wiring contained. Now that I'm done with gluing or adding any more wiring to these, I can insulate those, cover them up. And then the next step after that will be to glue the top down. Once the top of the cabin is down and glued, I could set that aside and get back to work on the outside shell, and more importantly, I need to get it. I need to get the lighting for the main engines done today. Okay, so I'm starting to work on the base. Again, opening up another can of worms before the other ones have fully formed. I want to go ahead and get this post squared up and leveled up. What I've got is your typical big box store, hardware store, craft table project, 15-inch round. It's a good scale for the rest of the kit, given how big that is. And what I'm doing now is I'm squaring up this piece of PVC. Now there is a brass insert in it, but rather than having to paint brass, I'd much rather prefer having this PVC. Plus it looks beefier, it looks more substantial than the brass, and I don't have to worry about the paint getting scratched off it as easily. Now I've got another luxury in that this is a nice flat surface here, so I can go ahead and get that leveled up, find a good level spot for it, and let's make sure I've got it right on here, because there is a bit of a bevel to the bottom of the ship. There we go, that's square. So if we do that, that's pretty darn good. That's pretty darn good. I'll adjust it a little bit, but I think what I want to do is put some epoxy on the bottom of that, shove it back in the hole, let that square up and be level, and then I can count on the rest of it being, because I know my table's level. My table always has been level. So if my table is level, this is sitting on top of it, it's level. Okay, I'm working on lighting up the engines, and because I got one to work the way I wanted to, I'm feeling a lot more confident in discussing how I did it, such that I can show you on the second one now. One of my favorite things to do, and I don't seek it out, but it happens a lot, is trying to find how to make something useful out of trash. And in this case, everyone's favorite landfiller is the Keurig plastic cup. I like Keurig coffees. I don't apologize for it. Back when I would make a full pot of coffee, I would end up drinking a full pot of coffee, and that just made the old heart race and was not good for me. So I like the idea of making a singular cup of coffee in a Keurig, and maybe one day, it'll be a regular cup, and the next thing will be a cup of hot chocolate. So I'm not making a commercial for Keurig, but what I am doing is showing you that if you take some LEDs and let me see, get the light out here, get the power to it. Basically, I took a Keurig cup and put 3 LEDs in it, make a circuit. The circuit makes a light, and the reason I wanted that to be round is I could make a box and box off the plastic part. I could have done that, easy enough to do. But here's the thing. This is the insert that it has to glue to. Now it's got a curve to it. It's a compound curve. It's a semicircle. So not easy to make a box that fits over top of that. But if you have something that's round, round will fit on top of that. So that's basically what I'm doing. And as long as all of the sides are inside there, see if I can put that up so you can see what's going on. As long as all the grill parts are in the lit up part, then that brings, not only are the lights far enough away that I don't need to put any diffuser in there, because I had thought about putting fiber fill in it, but that actually muffled the light too much. But now I can take this, and this is not going to be easy to do with one hand. I can park, like I said, not easy enough to do with one hand. Let me put this in place and then show you. I can basically park it in like that, and the next thing you know, Jed's a millionaire. Next thing you know, I've got a light source. So that's what I'm going to do. It worked well enough, so I'm going to do it for the second one. And then we'll epoxy the bulbs in, get them all ready to go, and then we can epoxy these pieces in. Basically what I want to do is epoxy this to this, and then glue this whole thing in as one module, just in from the back. So let's go ahead and get the second one of these made. It doesn't get any simpler. It's 3 LEDs with 1 resistor on it. 1 resistor is running all 3 of those in a chain. I guess that puts them in a series. That's not parallel, that's in a series. Alrighty, I'm happy with the side lights. Now I'm doing the one in the middle, and it's basically just a semicircle of the yellow strip lights. Now it's kind of the inverse of the Millennium Falcon engine in that it is a curve that goes in and not a curve that goes out, but it's kind of the same idea. I've just made up a box that will fit down inside. Turn the camera here. It'll fit down inside like that and light up through the back. And here is the box all put together with the light strip in there. And when we put it into the back of the ship and then try to do this with one hand, we get that. Bun bun bun. That's wonderful. That's exactly what we're looking for. Happy Thursday, everybody. It is the gateway to the weekend. Yay! And work is continuing apace on the Quark's Treasure here now. The first thing we have to do is pick up where we left off yesterday, and that is in getting these guys glued in. I realized that the module that I had made for the warp engine was bumping up against my oh-so-clever cones for the impulse engines, so I had to make them fit. Well, basically all I had to do was cut this piece off square with the bottom of that, and I will put some tape over that, and that'll take care of that issue, and it won't be an opening. But when you put them in, to quote the great Cloud William, we get a perfect unum. They match up just nicely with each other. It's kind of tough to see in there right now, but now you can see, if I pick the camera up and point it in there, that these things now fit next to each other. So gonna do that on the other one. You can see the conic section. See, this is where my high school math actually comes in handy. We have a conic section here that we have to cut out. A conic section here that we have to cut out, and it ends up looking like that when you're done. So we're gonna glue all of that in. I have already pre-attached the SM LEDs to the red running lights, the red running lights, the oh-so-red running lights. And when you do this, you get the red out of the red running lights, and those go up here on either side of the top. We also have some yellow lights that go right there, but I want to make sure these guys are glued in first before I tackle that, because I'm going to end up stepping over myself if I don't. So we're going to glue these in. Actually, now I can glue these in first, and you can see what that looks like with the section cut out of them. So I can pop those in first and then glue the other one around it, and then we can get on with the getting on. Okay, pardon the plotting in the background, but Daddy's gonna make rent. So I've got the 2 cans in. I've painted them a little bit more orange to top because my big concern right now is that the orange light from the impulse engines is not going to be different enough from the yellow light from the warp engines. So that's where I'm kind of where my head's at right now. But I want to show you now that I don't have to juggle holding these in one hand. Since they're glued in, I can show you what it looks like. That's what it looks like from the inside. Here's what it looks like from the outside. That's nice and orange. So now I need to glue in the big warp engine at the bottom, this guy here. And to do that, I think I'm just going to butter it up with some epoxy and kind of push it in place, sit it there, and kind of hold it while it does its thing. Fortunately, it's the same exact color. I wish that didn't look like that, but it does. Before I glue this in, what could I do? I'm wondering if I replace this. That's, believe it or not, that's yellow strip LED. It looks awfully white to me. I'm wondering if I could put a warm white in there and accomplish the same thing, or whether it would end up looking a little bit brighter. Because I've got yellow painted on the back side of this. Yeah, we might have to at least do some due diligence and try it and see whether it would look any better. Okay, this hasn't been the easiest, but I think I've got a solution. I tried a string of warm whites in here, and again, it wasn't all that different than the orange light I've got in there, so I went with a side of cool whites. And I think I'm finally getting a temperature difference, or something that is distinctly different enough from the orange up here that I think it was my last. It was a Hail Mary, but I think the cool whites in that strip is going to be what makes the difference. Okay, the yellow bottom is definitely brighter, and it's a little whiter than, of course it's showing up on camera a lot whiter, but it's a little whiter than the orange, which is as good as it gets, I have to tell you. Everything is wired in, and that's what I'm going to put the glue to keep it from moving around. But those are my two colors. Okay, we are slowly but surely adding, don't call me Shirley, slowly but surely adding lights to the show. We've got these two red nav lights, I guess they are. Plus I shortened these up and neatened them up a bit. I've got two yellow formation lights to go on either side here. Again, nothing blinks, nothing strobes, so we are in good shape. Nothing fancy, just gotta let it be. Go ahead and put these yellow lights in, and then we'll be ready to. Let's see. After that is what? After that is putting the windshield in. Put the windshield in, and then the main cabin. So we're getting closer and closer to buttoning this thing up. Okay, take a good look at all these lights, because if anything goes wrong, this could be the last time you see them all working. These are the two. And I've got to tell you, the first lesson I've learned, the hardest lesson I've learned, is there is no discernible difference between a yellow LED and an orange LED. You're just never going to see the difference between them. So, take that to the bank for whatever it's worth. In strip LEDs and single LEDs, the yellow and an orange are virtually the same. So now I've got all of the wiring, all of the lighting that's happening in the top of the shell. I've got it down to two wires, positive and negative, and that is going to be fished down the pipe to the base. That is going to be one circuit, and then the other circuit is going to be everything that's in the cabin, those two wires. So basically I'm going to have 4 wires coming down the stand, the post, into the base. And so I guess the first thing I need to do is clean all of this up, do some wire tidy, do some final soldering, get it down to my two, see where I've got this big bundle here. I just need to get 2 wires out of that, and do the same for the base, and then we'll be ready to put the cabin in. And here you go from the outside. All of the lights of the top shell are in. Ta-da! Alrighty, it's getting later into Thursday than I normally work, but we've got the interior in. The interior's in. We've got lights hooked up to it. We can see inside there. Everything is both hunky and dory. The cabin is well and truly affixed. And now we've got a couple of things I want to finish up tonight with. One is getting this base plate on, and the second, if we have time, is getting the pinchers on, which means we can hit the ground running tomorrow morning with the efforts to finish the paint job. Here are the two sets of leads that I was talking about. One powers the cabin, the other powers the rear engine lighting. So I will detach those from the power. And here are the two. I think what I'd like to do is maybe get some hot glue or something to glue these wires down with, so that I can run them out through the hole in the base and out to the rest of the world. Okay, everything is glued together. I've just taped up as much as I could, and this is a weird joint. I can't put a clamp on it because of the contours. The clamps will snap right off. So I am just doing a bit of squeezy. And this is where we're going to leave it tonight. Not only do we have the bottom plate epoxied on, but we've got the pinchers on ready to go. Now, this actually puts us in real good shape for tomorrow. All we need to do is clean up some lines. These lines here, they're the clumsiest thing I've ever seen, but that's how the filming model is. That's how the actual thing is, so you can't blame the kit for copying that. This is going to put us in good shape for painting tomorrow, and there won't hardly be any decals. I may put some of the belly decals on, but for the insignia and for all of those little circles on there, I'm going to paint those on. So that skips a whole bunch of steps that you would have to do if you were going to make decals. So we're ready for this to be dry. Now, don't mind the bug eyes here. I had to do a little work on the windshield, which involved taking it out, cleaning off the back of it, because if there's dust in the room, it's going to collect static electricity. Is going to make it collect on the back of a windshield. So I had to take the windshield out and clean it off, and then reattach it from the outside, and that's what these suction cups are for, so that I can pull tension against the outside edge. But this is the wings in place, the pinchers. Everything else is looking good. I've got these last little bits here to glue in that I'll certainly wait till after I've done the painting tomorrow to fit those in. But yeah, we're in good shape. I think we're going to hit this thing early tomorrow, and we should have no trouble finishing it up. Here it is, kids. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week. It's the last work day, maybe, on this Ferengi shuttle, on Quark's Treasure. We are in a very good shape right now. Everything is together with the exception of these little inserts. Last night, I not only put the bottom plate on, but also put the pinchers on and let the epoxy set up. It's more epoxy than man at this point. Everything is looking good inside and out. I've just been, see, the compressor waits. It waits until I turn the camera on to make its noise. So we're going to shut it off right now. Don't need you for a while anyway. So I've just been lightly sanding some of the boogers that are on the hull. Little paint smudges and bits of errant epoxy. I had to use the Bondo on a couple of seams that were, or a couple of gaps that were a little bit too big. They were very noticeable. But fortunately, the Bondo is about the color of the ship, so it's not going to be very hard at all to camouflage that. We've got one kind of inelegant joint right here where these two pieces go together, but that is hearkening back to this whole joint here that I had to reform. So this is looking very good. This is the yellow beacon here that is causing some sort of issue. That's the only thing that's sticking up there. I can mask that off and do a quick paint over top of that. So really, to this point, we are ready for the, like I said, a little bit of touch up there, the top coat of paint, and decals. And I'm using some of the decals, not using all of the decals, but I am also going to be painting on a lot of the insignia and such. So I'm going to be making those masks up now. I need to put a mask over the windshield to keep it clean. If you don't want to know the troubles I've been through with that windshield in the last 24 hours. So clean that off, block it off, so that I can do the light dusting of the coral color over top of everything. And then once that is set up, then I can do the insignia. The other half of this that is in the other room is the stand. I put another black coat on the post. I am working on the latinum bars now to run the wiring down through. And, oh boy, it's going to be one of those fun days. So let me get some foam. I want to get some foam to set that on so that I'm not scuffing up the paint. And we'll start by working on the bottom. Alrighty, we are ready to go. Now, I've got the table cleaned off as much as possible. It's getting harder and harder to do these days as I accumulate more and more stuff. I have got the cloth down, and Pat, you will recognize this. This is what your generous gift was also packed in. I didn't expect amongst all of the foam and bubble wrap to have an actual towel at the bottom, but thank you. It's going to come in very handy. It's a gift that keeps on giving. I hope you don't mind me getting paint on it from time to time. What I want to do now is put some of this orange back down, and I'm using the model color Vallejo orange red because I'm going to put the coral over top of everything, but I kind of need to cover up some of these spots where I went down to the primer with the orange so that when I put the coral on it, it's going to be an even match all over. Okay, I'm in love. I'm cheating on the color. Don't tell them. Please don't tell the coral that I'm cheating on it. But this German orange, I love it. It's so much better than the coral. I've said it. I said it out loud. I was just looking over at the shelf of paint, and I went, German orange, that would be a good undercolor. And I put it on there, and oh my God, that's the perfect top color. That is the perfect top color. So yeah, I just skipped a step, which is saving time. It's a marvelous thing. And what I'm going to do at this point is let this dry, and I'm going to hit it with a gloss coat just so I can put the decals on it and paint. Actually, I'm going to paint the insignia, and then I'll hit it with a gloss coat so that I can put the there's some black and white checkered lines here that I'm going to put just on the bottom side. There's not that many. I don't know if I'm going to go whole hog on them. The number of them that Keith has provided, I may not use all of them, but good Lord, I just fell in love with that color. It is such a beautiful color, and it's drying like chef's kiss. It's drying that well. So yeah, I'm going to jump on the plotter and make up some Ferengi symbols. I know Keith has provided these on this material. I'm just more comfortable with my own, and since I've got my own cutter here, why the heck not? See, this is the stuff that a lot of other people swear by this, but I just don't care for it. It's this real thin, semi-transparent stuff that is not my favorite. It's not my favorite. I prefer my yeller, so I'm going to use my yeller. But yeah, oh man. Okay, so now it's time to put the big insignia down, and on this curved shape, it's kind of tough to figure out your bearings. So what I've done is I've gone off of Keith's illustration here. I've cut it up because this big sheet is, frankly, Keith, that big sheet is tough to navigate. So I just cut it into the relevant chunks. And I'm noticing that there is a straight line here between the edge of the pincher going back to the center of the insignia. So that's where I'm drawing my line. I'm drawing a line here and no further. I'm taking this ruler and laying it down, and that's giving me my center line of the insignia. And as far as front to back, I'm just eyeballing where I think it needs to be. This space between this raised panel and the insignia itself. I'm just making sure that those lines that are kind of parallel, but they're not quite. This line here and that line there are not quite parallel, but they're close. And that's what I'm using to take my measurement from making sure that these are quasi-parallel. So that's down on that. And then I will run some masking tape all the way around it to mask off for overspray. I've done the one on the back. Now there's one here. Let's get it in camera. This one here. I've done this one. There are two more that happen here and here. I'm going to wait till I do the top side to do those because I have not sprayed the German orange on those areas just quite yet. Alright, the yellow green has been painted. I'm just going to remove the outer tape and leave the masks in place for right now. The next step would be to put a clear coat on this so that I can put whatever decals down. I can go ahead and do that because it would make sense that if you're going to put any of those decals or the pinstriping or any of that, your weathering is going to happen on top of that. So there is some soot streaking and re-entry streaking that I want to put on this, but it makes sense to do that over top of any painted or decaled details. So you know, I should wait, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna go ahead and peel these off just to see how they turned out. Better to know than not to know. Ooh, that's pretty. That's pretty. Take out some of that extra heavy pencil line that I put in. Don't like that. That was unnecessary. But look at that painted. Well, you can't because the camera is hitting the pincher. There you go. And that detail painted on. Lovely. I'll go ahead and take this one off. This one you'll be able to see. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Here's the question I'm grappling with. Yes, those decals exist. Yes, they're all over the place. This is the bottom side of the Quark's treasure. The thing is, this looks to be like right after it was created. It's got these big decals, which I am planning on using. The thing is, there's again another picture of it. From the underside, you can see all of these stripes. Well, they're starting to disappear here. They're not there anymore on the bottom of this. This one is still there. But the big ones here are gone. And the big ones on the underside here are gone. This is the view that I like. It does have a stripe here. It's got a stripe there on the tops of the wings. But that's the only, and there are no white stripes on the top of the hull. There's these ones you see along the bottom or the side there, which will be handy because that's an area that I could stand to cover up some gappage. And we've got these ones, these black ones I don't mind at all. And these are on the wings are pencil lines. This is the look that I like. This is a very much more toned down. It doesn't have those stripes at all here anymore. Nothing is there. So we're trying to find a nice happy medium. Again, it's got the roundels, but none of the black striping at all. Here's what it looks like at auction. And this is kind of the most stripped down version of it. It's got the insignia, it's got the circles, which I believe were painted on, which is why they survived. They weren't actual decals. It's got minimal weathering, but some. I don't understand where this hole came from. I've got these black rods to put back in. No detailing, no decals or anything happening there. Again, another picture at the auction. All of these side decals are gone that were there probably when the model was built. This is, it was reused many times. It was probably stripped down each time, but none of that is there. So where do you hit your happy medium? You look under there and you see there's nothing. There's nothing there. I kind of like the ones that Keith has provided for that, so I'm going to be using those. But where do you draw the line? Do you get rid of all of them? Do you keep a few of them? What's the happy medium? See, obviously none of the black striping is there at this point. So I have a canon rationalization for not using any of the striping. And Mr. Compressor's putting in his 2 cents. I'm kind of liking the ones, the decals that look like they're structural, for lack of a better term. Everything that's not the black and white dashed lines. There's a couple that go here. I might put those on first and then see how I feel about the dashed lines. If I don't put any decals on here, then I'm done, basically, because I've got these guys painted. I'm pretty more or less done with the bottom if I decide not to put any of those on. And here is the bottom with the decals on that are not the stripes. Oops, I can see some wrinkling there. Let's go ahead and get that out. Put it in the light and you can see it. Now I'm going to be doing a flat coat over these to get rid of the carrier film. I had an issue here where I had some of the epoxy that I used to hold the pinchers on. Well, that oozed up and kind of filled in that seam, which I thought was lovely at the time, not realizing that the decal needs to kind of slide down in there, like this side. This side has got the proper gap on it, and the decal can kind of die into that crease. Can't do that there, so we have a bit of a clumsiness. Hopefully you won't be looking underneath this with a microscope, but that is the decals without the stripes, and I have to step back, think about it, and see if I want to. And I've cut this stripe out just to see. Else, actually, I wanted to have it in case I had these guys too far forward, I could move them back. So I wanted to see about where they would need to land to make sure they weren't in the way. I tell you, I'm still not sold on those, on the idea of those decals needing to be there. Oh, tremendous things are happening now, kids. We've got as you can see, we've got the Quark's treasure flipped back over correctly, sitting on the foam block. Still haven't attached it to the base. I've put a splash coat over the original orange, or the original brick color, with the mix of the orange red and the famous German orange, and I couldn't be happier with it. That is exactly what I was looking for. Being very careful not to hit these decals that I've put on here, and this is a little mask to cover up the top of that yellow light. It's not solid. There are some mottled colors in there, which is kind of good. It speaks to me. It gives it scale. It gives a little bit of oomph, a little bit of scope. You're not quite looking at flat color. I need to go over this door one more time, and just a couple of other spots, and then we're gonna do the thing again with the insignia and the little O markings, the little these guys, the sets of the round circle. There's a lot more of them visible on the top, so that's really going to help set that off. I'm leaning against all those black outlines. I might see. I'm tempted to put the ones here because they're simple, they're understated, they're black, they're not flashy. We might end up opening a can of worms, but I think I might do the ones that just go on the top there. Okay, I've got the last bits of the yellow green painted. I am just removing the masks now. Got the outside perimeter tape taken off. I'm just going to leave the last bits of vinyl here. Nice and clean. And it leaves me to the quandary. So the last thing I need to do is hit this with a hit this with a satin coat if I am going to do any sort of decaling. Then of course we do the, go ahead and get this last one off the back here. There's some weathering that has to be done. Some black streaking and some blackening back in here and in that area. We're looking at coming up on 3 o'clock on a Friday. This is normally the time I start to wind down. But I've got that major step to do, plus getting it on the base. So I really need to think about what the next steps are going to be. Okay, for the last little bit, I have got the ship mounted on the base. I've got the wiring running down the post and out to the latinum. I've got both of the switches working. I need to get up and show you, I need to get the camera further back from the actual model here so you can see it. Kind of difficult to see everything in one shot now. Move this latinum out of the way. See if I can give you a side view. That'll help. Okay, we are further back. Now let's turn that off. And if I flip on the switch, that turns the ship lights on. It gets the running lights, gets the side lights, and of course the engines. And the other switch lights the interior. The interior that we know all so well. That is a very clear, oops, I forgot to take the masking off of the lower parts of the windshield. The masking tape. The windshield is very clean, very clear. That's the nice thing about VacuForm, is it's very transparent. Come on, let me get that last bit off. There you go. But we can now see back inside there. That can use a little bit of cleaning and dusting. We'll take care of that. Which brings us to the overall question. Now it looks more orange on camera than it is. And also I don't have the daylight on. I've got the very yellow overhead LEDs, which give a false impression of the actual color. That's why I like to use a combination of the overhead fluorescent and the lighting here. But trust me, when it's taken outside, it's almost exactly the same color as the colors in the Drex Files pictures. Okay, it struck me as I was decorating the base with latinum that just like your typical Ferengi, I need more latinum. So I'm printing more latinum. I'm going to print another couple batches of this weekend. I think I'm going to try to cover as much of this base as I can with it. Just heap it up on there. See how that looks. I've got the switch in there hidden. I can go ahead and plug that back in. It's glued down now, so it shouldn't move. There you go. But I think the last thing to do is going to be to glue the ship onto the stand so that it doesn't spin. I mean, it's consistent with the rest of the base. But there you go. I still have some pencil work and some smudging to do, and I think that's between that and adding more latinum to the base, I think that's going to be next week's work. So we're going to call it week 2 out of 2.5. And I believe that's where we're going to leave it for this week. I thought I was going to have it finished, came awfully close to having it finished, but it would be one of those cases that if I rushed through to the last bit just to get it done, I think I would end up regretting it. If I had one more day this week, I would be finished with this. I would say one more day's worth of work on it's all it's going to take. But I'm going to use the opportunity to print up some more latinum bars so that I can really heap them on this base, really make it look good, and finish it in a way that's befitting the rest of this. To say we've got a lot done would be an understatement. It is mostly done. All that's left are the final touches, and those touches will be taking place beginning of next week. So until then, be good, be safe, be smart. Don't trust any. Don't take any wooden latinums. Maybe that should be it. Shouldn't take any wooden latinum bars. And we'll be back here for the thrilling conclusion next week. And like I said, it's more than likely won't take the full week, so I'll probably have another midweek bonus for you. So until then, ta-ta.